which floats on the top of the liquid. And, excuse me, and through comparison in the our design and operation manual, the liquid level reading ties in with a weight scale in the manual, so you can determine what the actual weight is of that agent without having to weigh it. Again, the standard components are the cylinder valve, dip tube, liquid level indicator, the cylinder itself, and of course the retaining bracket. Now, unlike the SV valve, the supervisory low pressure switch and the pressure gauge are not shipped as a valve assembly. On the SV, they are part of the valve assembly itself, and they cannot be removed in the field. The MV and the LV series allows you to remove and replace should there be a fault on that valve. Again, the rupture disc protects the cylinder from overpressurization. And again, the key focus there is the 850 psi, which I believe is about 2.5 times the working pressure of the cylinder. Trim components, again, very similar in design. In fact, the MV valve is a big brother to the SV valve. It's a 2-inch outlet as opposed to an 1.25-inch outlet. Requires a grooved coupling and grooved elbow and a simple pipe nipple to attach to the discharge manifold. Again, the anti-recoil plug is standard. The liquid level is standard, incidentally, across the MV and LV series. Several of our competitors will provide that as an option. We decided to standardize on the design to avoid any confusion. Again, all born from some experiences over the last 25 years. Again, the manifold check valve, very similar in design, just much larger, much heavier, much more expensive. Okay, the MV arrangement, as you can see on the top line, also up to 15 slave cylinders. The second line here, the maximum length of 100 feet of pilot hose. This allows us to design systems for much larger areas where you cannot have a manifolded system. So again, through testing, we are able to pilot cylinders together at a maximum of 100 feet of either direction from your primary cylinder by simply tying in the pilot actuation line from the single pilot cylinder. Now, the 100 feet is restricted to a copper tubing or the flex hose. If you were using Schedule 40 pipe, the distance is a little less, down to 25 feet. But it's an advantage, it's something to consider, especially for the engineers, the designers out there, where it's not always possible to install a manifolded system. Okay, the LV series. These are the big boys. Need some muscle for these. Comes in 3 sizes, 600 pounds, 900, and 1,000 pounds. Again, you'll see many common features on the series of cylinders here. Again, the cylinder and valve assembly, dip tube, liquid level indicator, the rupture disc, and of course the cylinder bracket. Again, very similar in design. To give you an example, I spoke earlier on of equivalent length. This 3-inch valve has an equivalent length of about 11 feet. I'm not sure what that is in metric, maybe 2.5, 3 meters. Our competitors have an equivalent length of 58 to 63 feet for their valves. So as you can appreciate, the flow restrictions are much greater than what we're able to enjoy today. Again, a very familiar picture with the grooved elbow and the coupling. Again, this is 3-inch, much larger in size to the NV. On this particular series of cylinders, you'll see the liquid level is built into the body of the cylinder assembly. It's the only difference in the design. Again, the low pressure supervisory switch and the pressure gauge can both be removed in the field should they need to be replaced. Again, a common feature, up to 15 slaves from a single primary. It's important to understand the difference here in what we used to have in our industry versus what we're able to do today. I mentioned earlier on the main and reserve system. The manifold check valve is required to connect the cylinder arrangements in the discharge manifold. And here is the main reserve switch I mentioned. We're able to provide you a connected reserve or an unconnected reserve. The difference being a connected reserve are manifolded together. An unconnected reserve is just a simple standby cylinder that you would connect following a discharge of the primary cylinder. Obviously, with the connected, you have to transfer the power from one solenoid to the second. These are what we call the common components. Again, as I pointed out in the beginning, we have 3 types of cylinder arrangements: SV, MV, LV. Not uncommon across any of our competitors where they have different sizes for different types of hazard areas, size, volume, etc. Speaking from experience, we noticed there was a lot of confusion when people were ordering one particular size of cylinder versus a larger size cylinder. And this particular device, the electric actuator, one was required for each series of cylinders. And we found on many occasions people would order the wrong actuator and try and install it on a different size cylinder, which often resulted in discharging that cylinder. And then the question was, well, why did that happen? So we would double check the purchase orders, double check the part number, and they had ordered the wrong part for the wrong cylinder. So we decided to take all the confusion away, and we standardized on this one component that will fit all 3 series of cylinders. Again, this is also a common feature with the manual valve actuator. Very simple in design. Simply remove the ring pin, push down on the red button on the top, which upsets the fill check in the cylinder valve, allowing the agent to enter into the discharge piping. Now for those of you that are doing the installation, one thing that is very critical here is the very bottom line. there is a small pin inside this, which when you push down, pops down. You have to manually reset that pin before you reinstall it on the cylinder assembly. Otherwise you will discharge the cylinder. And at that point, incidentally, there's no return, because that cylinder knows to get that agent out of there in 5 or 10 seconds. It's just cost you a lot of money. Low pressure supervisory switch. As you can see, we've designated this for the SV. And the key here, this cannot be removed while the cylinder is under pressure. It is shipped as part of the cylinder valve assembly. Single pole, 1.5 amps, sends a signal to the control panel should the cylinder drop below approximately 280 psi. Supervisory switch with the NV and LV. Again, the focus here is on the very bottom line. These cylinder valve assemblies are not shipped with the supervisory pressure switch or pressure gauge. They're ordered separately and they are installed in the field. And they can be removed while the system is still under pressure. Again, from our experiences, this was another feature that we feel is an upgrade or an upsell to our product offering. Many of our competitors today will offer this as an option. It comes standard on the Janus systems.